Look, this mattress isn't as mildewed as the other ones.
In the summertime, the valleys grow green with moss.
Daenerys. The Dothraki named the comet Shirak-Gia, the bleeding star. The old men muttered that it omened ill, but Daenerys Targaryen had seen it first on the night she'd burned Khal Drogo, the night her dragons had awakened. "It is the herald of my coming," she told herself as she gazed up into the night sky with wonder in her heart. "The gods have sent it to show me the way." Yet when she put the thought into words, her handmaid Doria quailed. "That way lies the Red Lands, Khaleesi, a grim place and terrible, that I just say." "The way the comet points is the way we must go," Dany insisted, though in truth it was the only way open to her. She did not dare turn north into the vast ocean of grass they called the Dothraki Sea. The first Khalasar they would meet would swallow up her ragged band, slaying the warriors and slaving the rest. The lands of the Landmen were south of the river were likewise closed to them. They were too few to defend themselves, even against that unwarlike folk, and the Lazarene had small reason to love them. She might have struck down river for the ports at Marine and Yunkai and Astapor, but Rakara warned her that Pono's Khalasar had ridden that way, driving thousands of captives before them to sell in the flesh marts that festered like open sores on the shores of Slavers Bay. "Why should I fear Pono?" Dany objected. "He was Drogo's co, and always spoke me gently." "Co Pono spoke you gently," Sir Jorah Mormont said. "Khal Pono will kill you. He was the first to abandon Drogo. 10,000 warriors went with him. You have 100. "No," Dany thought. "I have 4. The rest are women, old sick men, and boys whose hair has never been braided." "I have dragons," she pointed out. "Hatchlings," Sir Jorah said. "One swipe from an ankh would put an end to them, though Pono was more like to seize them for himself. Your dragon eggs were more precious than rubies. A living dragon is beyond price. In all the world there are only 3. Every man who sees them will want them, my queen." "They are mine," she said fiercely. They had been born from her faith and her need, given life by the deaths of her husband and unborn son and the Magi Miri Mazdur. Dany had walked into the flames as they came forth, and they had drunk milk from her swollen breasts. "No man will take them from me while I live." "You will not live long should you meet Khal Pono, nor Khal Jocko, or any of the others. You must go where they do not." Dany had named him first of her Queen's Guard, and when Mormont's gruff counsel in the omens agreed, her course was clear. She called her people together and mounted her silver mare. Her hair had burned away in Drogo's pyre, so her handmaids garbed her in the skin of the Hrakar Drogo had slain, the white lion of the Dothraki Sea. Its fearsome head made a hood to cover her naked scalp, its pelt a coat that flowed across her shoulders and down her back. The cream-coloured dragon sunk sharp black claws into the lion's mane and coiled its tail around her arm, while Sir Jorah took his accustomed place by her side. "We follow the comet," Dany told her Khalasar. Once it was said, no word was raised against it. They had been Drogo's people, but they were hers now. The Unburnt, they called her, and Mother of Dragons. Her word was their law. They rode by night and by day took refuge from the sun beneath their tents. Soon enough Dany learned the truth of Doria's words. This was no kindly country. They left a trail of dead and dying horses behind them as they went, for Pono, Jacko, and the others had seized the best of Drogo's herds, leaving to Dany the old and the scrawny, the sickly and the lame, the broken animals and the ill-tempered. It was the same with the people. "They are not strong," she told herself, "so I must be their strength. I must show no fear, no weakness, no doubt. However frightened my heart, when they look upon my face they must only see Drogo's queen." She felt older than her 14 years. If she had ever truly been a girl, that time was done. 3 days into the march the first man died. A toothless oldster with cloudy blue eyes, he fell exhausted from his saddle and could not rise again. An hour later he was done. Bloodflies swarmed about his corpse and carried his ill luck to the living. "His time was past," her handmaid Irri declared. "No man should live longer than his teeth." The others agreed. Dany bid them kill the weakest of their dying horses so the dead man might go mounted into the Nightlands. 2 nights later, it was an infant girl who perished. Her mother's anguished wailing lasted all day, but there was nothing to be done. The child had been too young to ride, poor thing. Not for her the endless black grasses of the Nightlands. She must be born again. There was little forage in the red waste and less water. It was a sere and desolate land of low hills and barren wind-swept plains. The rivers they crossed were as dry as dead man's bones. Their mounts subsisted on the tough brown devil grass that grew in clumps at the base of rocks and dead trees. Dany sent outriders ranging ahead of the column, but they found neither wells nor springs, only bitter pools, shallow and stagnant, shrinking in the hot sun. The deeper they rode into the waste, the smaller the pools became, while the distance between them grew. If there were gods in this tactless wilderness of stone and sand and red clay, they were hard, dry gods, deaf to the prayers of rain. Wine gave out first, and soon after the clotted mare's milk the horse lords loved better than mead. Then their stores of flatbread and dried meat were exhausted as well. Their hunters found no game, and only the flesh of their dead horses filled their bellies. Death followed death. Weak children, wrinkled old women, the sick and the stupid and the heedless, the cruel land claimed them all. Doria grew gaunt and hollow-eyed, and her soft golden hair turned brittle as straw. Dany hungered and thirsted with the rest of them. The milk in her breasts dried up, her nipples cracked and bled, and the flesh fell away from her day by day until she was lean and hard as a stick. Yet it was a dragon she'd feared for. Her father had been slain before she was born, and her splendid brother Rhaegar as well. Her mother had died bringing her into this world while the storm screamed outside. Gentle Sir Willem Darry, who must have loved her after a fashion, had been taken by a wasting sickness when she was very young. Her brother Viserys, Khal Drogo, who was her sun and stars, even her unborn son, the gods had claimed them all. "They will not have my dragons," Dany vowed. "They will not." The dragons were no larger than the scrawny cats she'd once seen skulking along the walls of Magister Illyrio's estate in Pentos, until they unfolded their wings. Their span was 3 times their length, each wing a delicate fan of translucent skin, gorgeously coloured, stretched taut between long, thin bones. When you looked hard, you could see that most of their body was neck, tail, and wing. Such little things, she thought as she fed them by hand. Or rather tried to feed them, for the dragons wouldn't eat. They would hiss and spit at each bloody morsel of horse meat, steam rising from their nostrils. Yet they would not take the food, until Dany recalled something Viserys had told her once when they were children. "Only dragons and men eat cooked meat," he had said. When she had her handmaids char the horse meat black, the dragons ripped at it eagerly, their heads striking like snakes. So long as the meat was seared, they gulped down several times their own weight every day, and at last began to grow larger and stronger. Dany marvelled at the smoothness of their scales, and the heat that poured off of them, so palpable that on cold nights their whole bodies seemed to steam. Each nightfall as the Khalasar set out, she would choose a dragon to ride upon her shoulder. Irri and Jiqui carried the others in a cage of woven wood slung between their mounts, and rode close behind her, so Dany was never out of their sight. It was the only way to keep them quiescent. "Aegon's dragons were named for the gods of old Valyria," she told her blood riders one morning after a long night's journey. "Visenya's dragon was Vhagar, Rhaenys had Meraxes, and Aegon rode Balerion, the Black Dread. It was said that Vhagar's breath was so hot it could melt a knight's armour and cook the man inside, that Meraxes swallowed horses whole, and Balerion, his fire was as black as his scales, his wings so vast that whole towns were swallowed up in their shadow when he passed overhead." The Dothraki looked at her hatchlings uneasily. The largest of her 3 was shiny black, his scales slashed with streaks of vivid scarlet to match his wings and horns. "Khaleesi," Aggo murmured. "There sits Balerion come again." "It may be as you say, blood of my blood," Dany replied gravely. But we shall have a new name for this new life. I would name them for all those the gods have taken. The green one shall be Rhaegal, for my valiant brother, who died on the green banks of the Trident. The cream and gold I call Viserion. Viserys was cruel and weak and frightened, yet he was my brother still. His dragon will do what he could not. And the black beast? Asked Ser Jorah Mormont. The black, she said, is Drogon. Yet even as her dragons prospered, her khalasar withered and died. Around them the land turned even more desolate. Even devil grass grew scant. Horses dropped in their tracks, leaving so few that some of her people must tread along on foot. Doria took a fever and grew worse with every league they crossed. Her lips and hands broke with blood blisters. Her hair came out in clumps, and one evenfall she lacked the strength to mount her horse. Jogo said they must leave her or bind her to the saddle, but Dany remembered a night on the Dothraki Sea when the Lysene girl had taught her secrets so that Drogo might love her more. She gave Doria water from her own skin, cooled her brow with a damp cloth, and held her hand until she died, shivering. Only then would she permit the khalasar to press on. They saw no sign of other travellers. The Dothraki began to mutter fearfully that the comet had led them to some hell. Dany went to Ser Jorah one morning as they made camp amidst a jumble of black wind-scoured stones. "Are we lost?" she asked him. "Does this waste have no end to it?" "It has an end," he answered wearily. "I've seen the maps the traders draw, my queen. Few caravans come this way, that is so. Yet there are great kingdoms to the east and cities full of wonders. Yeti, Karth, Ashai by the Shadow. Will we live to see them?" "I will not lie to you. The way is harder than I dared think." The knight's face was grey and exhausted. The wound he'd taken to his hip the night he fought Khal Drogo's blood riders had never fully healed. She could see how he grimaced when he mounted his horse, and he seemed to slump in his saddle as they rode. "Perhaps we are doomed if we press on, but I know for a certainty that we are doomed if we turn back." Dany kissed him lightly on the cheek. It heartened her to see him smile. I must be strong for him as well, she thought grimly. A knight he may be, but I am blood of the dragon. The next pool they found was scalding hot and stinking of brimstone, but their skins were almost empty. The Dothraki cooled the water in jars and pots and drank it tepid. The taste was no less foul, but water was water, and all of them thirst. Dany looked at the horizon with despair. They'd lost a third of their number, and still the waste stretched before them, bleak and red and endless. The comet mocks my hopes, she thought, lifting her eyes to where it scored the sky. Have I crossed half the world and seen the birth of dragons, only to die with them in this hot, hard desert? She would not believe it. The next day dawn broke as they were crossing a cracked and fissured plain of hard red earth. Dany was about to command them to make camp when her outriders came back at a gallop. "A city, Khaleesi!" they cried. "A city pale as moon and lovely as a maid! An hour's ride, no more!" "Show me," she said. When the city appeared before her, its walls and towers shimmering like white behind a veil of heat, it looked so beautiful that Dany was certain it must be a mirage. "Do you know what place this might be?" she asked Ser Jorah. The exile knight gave a weary shake of his head. "No, my queen. I've never travelled this far east." The distant white walls promised rest and safety, a chance to heal and grow strong, and Dany wanted nothing so much as to rush toward them. Instead she turned to her blood riders. "Blood of my blood, go ahead of us and learn the name of this city and what manner of welcome we should expect." "Aye, Khaleesi," said Argo. Her riders were not long in returning. Rokharo swung down from his saddle. From his medallion belt hung the great curving ankh that Dany had bestowed upon him when she named him Blood Rider. "This city is dead, Khaleesi. Nameless and godless we found it, but the gates broken, only wind and flies moving through the streets." Jiqui shuddered. "When the gods are gone, the evil ghosts feast by night. Such places are best shunned. It is known." "It is known," Irri agreed. "Not to me." Dany put her heels into her horse and showed them the way, trotting beneath the shattered arch of an ancient gate and down a silent street. Ser Jorah and her blood riders followed, and then more slowly, the rest of the Dothraki. How long the city had been deserted she could not know, but the white walls, so beautiful from afar, were cracked and crumbling when seen up close. Inside was a maze of narrow, crooked alleys. The buildings pressed close, their facades blank, chalky, windowless. Everything was white, as if the people who lived here had known nothing of colour. They rode past heaps of sun-washed rubble where houses had fallen in, and elsewhere she saw faded scars of fire. At a place where 6 alleys came together, Dany passed an empty marble plinth. Dothraki had visited this place before, it would seem. Perhaps even now the missing statue stood among the other stolen gods and Vaes Dothrak. She might have ridden past it 100 times, never knowing. On her shoulder, Viserion hissed. They made camp before the remnants of a gutted palace, on a wind-swept plaza where devil grass grew between the paving stones. Dany sent out men to search the ruins. Some went reluctantly, yet they went. And one scarred old man returned a brief time later, hopping and grinning, his hands overflowing with figs. They were small withered things, yet her people grabbed for them greedily, jostling and pushing at each other, stuffing the fruit into their cheeks and chewing blissfully. Others returned with tales of other fruit trees, hidden behind closed doors and secret gardens. Aggo showed her a courtyard overgrown with twisting vines and tiny green grapes, and Jogo discovered a well where the water was pure and cold. Yet they found bones too, the skulls of the unburied dead, bleached and broken. "Ghosts," Irri muttered. "Terrible ghosts. We must not stay here, Khaleesi. This is their place." "I fear no ghosts. Dragons are more powerful than ghosts. And figs are more important. Go with Jiqui and find some clean sand for a bath, and trouble me no more with silly talk." In the coolness of her tent, Dany blackened horse meat over a brazier and reflected on her choices. There was food and water here to sustain them, and enough grass for the horses to regain their strength. How pleasant it would be to wake every day in the same place, to linger among shady gardens, eat figs, and drink cool water as much as she might desire. When Irri and Jiqui returned with pots of white sand, Dany stripped and let them scrub her clean. "Your hair is coming back, Khaleesi," Jiqui said as she scraped sand off her back. Dany ran a hand over the top of her head, feeling the new growth. Dothraki men wore their hair in long oiled braids and cut them only when defeated. Perhaps I should do the same, she thought, to remind them that Drogo's strength lives within me now. Khal Drogo had died with his hair uncut, a boast few men could make. Across the tent, Rhaegal unfolded golden wings to flap and flutter half a foot before thumping onto the carpet. When he landed, his tail lashed back and forth in fury, and he raised his head and screamed. If I had wings, I would want to fly too, Dany thought. The Targaryens of old had ridden upon dragonback when they went to war. She tried to imagine what that might feel like, to straddle a dragon's neck and soar high into the air. It would be like standing on a mountain top, only better. The whole world would be spread out below. If I flew high enough, I could even see the 7 kingdoms and reach up and touch the comet. Irri broke her reverie to tell her that Ser Jorah Mormont was outside, awaiting her pleasure. "Send him in," Dany commanded, sand-scrubbed skin tingling. She wrapped herself in the lion skin. The Hrakkar had been much bigger than Dany, so the pelt covered everything that wanted covering. "I've brought you a peach," Ser Jorah said, kneeling. It was so small she could almost hide it in her palm, and overripe too. But when she took the first bite, the flesh was so sweet she almost cried. She ate it slowly, savouring every mouthful, while Ser Jorah told her of the tree he had plucked it from, in a garden near the western wall. "Fruit and water and shade," Dany said, her cheeks sticky with peach juice. "The gods were good to bring us to this place." "We should rest here until we are stronger," the knight urged. "The Redlands are not kind to the weak." "My handmaids say there are ghosts here." "There are ghosts everywhere," Ser Jorah said softly. "We carry them with us wherever we go." Yes, she thought. Viserys, Khal Drogo, my son Rhaego, they are always with me. "Tell me the name of your ghost, Jorah. You know all of mine." His face grew very still. Her name was Liness. Your wife? My second wife. It pains him to speak of her, Dany saw, but she wanted to know the truth. Is that all you would say of her? The lion pelt slid off one shoulder and she tugged it back into place. Was she beautiful? Very beautiful. Sir Jorah lifted his eyes from her shoulder to her face. The first time I beheld her I thought she was a goddess come to earth, the maid herself made flesh. Her birth was far above my own. She was the youngest daughter of Lord Leighton Hightower of Old Town. The White Bull who commanded your father's Kingsguard was her great-uncle. The Hightowers are an ancient family, very rich and very proud. And loyal, Dany said. I remember Viserys said the Hightowers were among those who stayed true to my father. That's so, he admitted. Did your fathers make the match? No, he said. Our marriage, that makes a long tale and a dull one, your grace. I would not trouble you with it. I have nowhere to go, she said. Please. As my queen commands. Sir Jorah frowned. My home. You must understand that to understand the rest. Bear Island is beautiful but remote. Imagine old gnarled oaks and tall pines, flowering thorn brushes, grey stones bearded with moss, little creeks running icy down steep hillsides. The hall of the Mormonts is built of huge logs and surrounded by an earthen palisade. Aside from a few crofters, my people live along the coasts and fish the seas. The island lies far to the north, and our winters are more terrible than you can imagine, Khaleesi. Still, the island suited me well enough, and I never lacked for women. I had my share of fishwives and crofters' daughters, before and after I was wed. I married young, to a bride of my father's choosing, a Glover of Deepwood Motte. 10 years we were wed, or near enough makes no matter. She was a plain-faced woman, but not unkind. I suppose I came to love her after a fashion, though our relations were more dutiful than passionate. 3 times she miscarried while trying to give me an heir. The last time she never recovered. She didn't last long after. Dany put her hand on his and gave his fingers a squeeze. I am sorry for you. Truly. Sir Jorah nodded. By then my father had taken the Black, so I was Lord of Bear Island in my own right. I had no lack of marriage offers, but before I could reach a decision, Lord Balon Greyjoy rose in rebellion against the usurper, and Ned Stark called his banners to help his friend Robert. The final battle was on Pike. When Robert's stone throwers opened a breach in King Balon's wall, a priest from Myr was the first man through, but I was not far behind. For that I won my knighthood. To celebrate his victory, Robert ordained that a tourney would be held outside Lannisport. It was there I saw Linnis, a maid half my age. She had come up from Old Town with her father to see her brother's joust. I could not take my eyes off her. In a fit of madness I begged her favour to wear in the tourney, never dreaming she would grant my request. Yet she did. I fight as well as any man, Khaleesi, but I have never been a tourney knight. Yet with Linness's favour knotted around my arm, I was a different man. I won joust after joust. Lord Jason Mallister fell before me, and Bronze Yon Royce, Sir Ryman Frey, his brother Sir Hostine, Lord Went, Strongbear, even Sir Boros Blount of the Kingsguard. I unhorsed them all. In the last match I broke 9 lances against Jaime Lannister to no result, and King Robert gave me the champion's laurel. I crowned Linness Queen of Love and Beauty, and that very night went to her father and asked for her hand. I was drunk as much on glory as on wine. By rights I should have gotten a contemptuous refusal, but Lord Leighton accepted my offer. We were married there in Lannisport, and for a fortnight I was the happiest man in the whole wide world. Only a fortnight? Asked Dany. Even I was given more happiness than that, with Drogo, who was my sun and stars. A fortnight was how long it took us to sail from Lannisport back to Bear Island. My home was a great disappointment to Linness. It was too cold, too damp, too far away, my castle no more than a wooden long hall. We had no masks, no mummers' shows, no balls or fairs. Seasons might pass without a singer ever coming to play for us, and there's not a goldsmith on the island. Even meals became a trial. My cook knew little beyond his roasts and stews, and Lynesse soon lost her taste for fish and venison. I lived for her smiles, so I went all the way to Old Town for a new cook, and brought a harper from Lannisport. Goldsmiths, jewellers, dressmakers, whatever she wanted, I found for her, but it was never enough. Bear Island is rich in bears and trees, and poor in aught else. I built a fine ship for her, and we sailed to Lannisport and Old Town for festivals and fairs, and once even to Bravos, where I borrowed heavily from the moneylenders. It was as a tourney champion I had won her heart and hand, so I entered other tourneys for her sake. But the magic was gone. I never distinguished myself again, and such defeat meant the loss of another charger and another suit of jousting armour, which must needs be ransomed or replaced. The cost could not be borne. Finally I insisted we'd returned home, but there matters grew even worse than before. I could no longer pay the cook and the harper, and Lynesse grew wild when I spoke of pawning her jewels. The rest, I did things it shames me to speak of, for gold, so Lynesse could keep her jewels, her harper, and her cook. In the end it cost me all. When I heard that Eddard Stark was coming to Bear Island, I was so lost to honour that rather than stay and face his judgment, I took her with me into exile. Nothing mattered but our love, I told myself. We fled to Lys, where I sold my ship for gold to keep us. His voice was thick with grief, and Dany was reluctant to press him any further, yet she had to know how it ended. "Did she die there?" she asked him gently. "Only to me," he said. "In half a year my gold was gone, and I was obliged to take service as a sellsword. While I was fighting Bravosi on the Rhoyne, Lynesse moved into the manse of a merchant prince named Traegar Ormolan. They say she is his chief concubine now, and even his wife goes in fear of her." Dany was horrified. "Do you hate her?" "Almost as much as I love her," Sir Jorah answered. "Please excuse me, my queen. I find I'm very tired." She gave him leave to go, but as he was lifting the flap of her tent, she could not stop herself calling after him, with one last question. "What did she look like, your Lady Lynesse?" Sir Jorah smiled sadly. "Why, she looked a bit like you, Daenerys." He bowed low. "Sleep well, my queen." Dany shivered and pulled the lion skin tight round her. She looked like me. It explained much she had never truly understood. He wants me, she realized. He loves me as he loved her, not as a knight loves his queen, but as a man loves a woman. She tried to imagine herself in Sir Jorah's arms, kissing him, pleasuring him, letting him enter her. It was no good. When she closed her eyes, his face kept changing into Drogo's. Khal Drogo had been her sun in stars, her first, and perhaps he must be her last. The Magi Mirri Maz Dur had sworn she would never bear a living child, and what man would want a barren wife? And what man could hope to rival Drogo, who had died with his hair uncut, and rode now in the Nightlands, the stars his Khalasar? She had heard the longing in Sir Jorah's voice when he spoke of his Bear Island. He can never have me, but one day I can give him back his home and honour. That much I can do for him. No ghost troubled her sleep that night. She dreamed of Drogo and the first ride they'd taken together on the night when they were wed. In the dream it was not horses they rode, but dragons. The next morn she summoned her blood riders. "Blood of my blood," she told the three of them, "I have need of you. Each of you is to choose 3 horses, the hardiest and healthiest that remain to us. Load as much water and food as your mounts can bear, and ride forth for me. Aggo, you shall strike southwest, Rakaro due south, Jogo, you are to follow the Shirikia on southeast." "What shall we seek, Khaleesi?" asked Jogo. "Whatever there is," Dany answered. "Seek for other cities, living and dead. Seek for caravans and people. Seek for rivers and lakes and the great salt sea. Find how far this waste extends before us, and what lies on the other side. When I leave this place, I do not mean to strike out blind again. I will know where I am bound and how best to get there." And so they went, the bells in their hair ringing softly, while Dany settled down with her small band of survivors in the place they named Vaes Tolaro, the City of Bones. Day followed night, followed day. Women harvested fruit from the gardens of the dead. Men groomed their mounts and mended saddles, stirrups, and shoes. Children wandered the twisty alleys and found old bronze coins and bits of purple glass, and stone flagons with handles carved like snakes. One woman was stung by a red scorpion, but hers was the only death. The horses began to put on some flesh. Dany tended Ser Jorah's wound herself, and it began to heal. Rakara was the first to return. Due south the red waste stretched on and on, he reported, until it ended on a bleak shore beside the poison water. Between here and there lay only swirling sand and wind-scoured rocks, and plants bristly with sharp thorns. He had passed the bones of a dragon, he swore, so immense that he had ridden his horse through its great black jaws. Other than that, he'd seen nothing. Dany gave him a charge of 12 of her strongest men and sent them pulling up the plaza to get the earth beneath. If devil grass could grow between the paving stones, other grasses could grow when the stones were gone. They had wells enough, no lack of water. Given seed, they could make the plaza bloom. Aggo was back next. The southwest was barren and burnt, he swore. He found the ruins of 2 more cities, smaller than Vaes Tolaro, but otherwise the same. One was warded by a ring of skulls mounted on rusted iron spears, so he dared not enter, but he had explored the second one for as long as he could. He showed Dany an iron bracelet he'd found, set with an uncut fire opal the size of her thumb. There were scrolls as well, but they were dry and crumbling, and Aggo had left them where they lay. Dany thanked him and told him to see to the repair of the gates. If enemies had crossed the waste to destroy these cities in ancient days, they might well come again. "If so, we must be ready," she declared. Drogo was gone so long that Dany feared him lost, but finally, when they had all but ceased to look out for him, he came riding back from the southeast. One of the guards that Aggo had posted saw him first and gave a shout, and Dany rushed to the walls to see for herself. It was true. Drogo came, yet not alone. Behind him rode 3 queerly garbed strangers atop ugly humped creatures that dwarfed any horse. They drew rein before the city gates and looked up to see Dany on the wall above them. "Blood of my blood," Drogo called. "I have been to the great city of Karth and returned with 3 who would look upon you with their own eyes." Dany stared down at the strangers. "Here I stand. Look, if that is your pleasure. But first tell me your names." The pale man with the blue lips replied in guttural Dothraki. "I am Bayat Pri, the great warlock." The bald man with the jewels in his nose answered in the Valyrian of the Free Cities. "I am Zarozoan Doxos of the 13, a merchant prince of Karth." The woman in the lacquered wooden mask said in the common tongue of the 7 kingdoms, "I am Quaithe, of the Shadow. We come seeking dragons." "Seek no more," Daenerys Targaryen told them. "You have found them."
Daenerys Targaryen.
First of her name.
And she has dragons. And she found a place that seems pretty nice.
After spending...
Garden of Eden in the middle of Death Valley.
Yeah. She definitely went on this kind of whole, seems like religious pilgrimage type journey. Everybody's dying left and right. Terrible.
It is, but now they have figs and water and they can grow their own food. Things are looking up. And they still have dragons. And we found out that dragons are the only other animal besides man that eats cooked meat.
Yep.
Which makes sense. They have the means to cook it.
Right. And
I wonder how a dragon likes his steak.
Maybe when they get bigger, we'll have to ask them. They're still bibbies.
That's true.
And
well,
she
Dany
would not...
said charred, so I'm going to assume well done. In other words, dragons shouldn't have steaks.
No.
It's a waste of a good steak.
And the only reason she knows that is because of Viserys.
Yes.
Viserys.
Who we found out is one of the dragon's namesakes,
Yes.
along with Drogo.
And Rhaegar. Yay.
So all the men in her life.
Yes. Except for,
Well, all the
except
men
for
that
Dany.
were in her life.
Yeah. Because she still got Jorah.
Yeah, and she just came to a really big realization about that he's got feelings.
He's got the feels for Dany.
This 50-year-old man is trying to rekindle his love for his ex-wife, who's now... Can't remember where they said that.
She's like a concubine.
Yeah, concubine.
Of some rich magistrate or something. I don't know.
Good for her, but I don't think Dany's gonna be able to fill those shoes.
Dany doesn't want to fill those shoes.
No.
That's what it is I think there's a line where she's like, she imagined herself kissing him, holding him, letting him inside her, and she was just like, nah.
Dany's like, what, 14, 15 at this point?
Yeah.
So he's like, he'll be dead by the time she hits 30.
Well, plus, in the books, he's described as like this big, tall, really, really hairy dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like a bear. And he's bald.
And he's bald, that's right. So
all the hair ran from the top of his head and just spread out.
Spread out. And then going from Drogo to Jorah, they're very opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Drogo was like this tall, bronze, godlike figure almost, you know?
I mean,
like
they are
Adonis looking.
They are both great warriors.
They are both great warriors. I don't think Drogo was 50 though.
No, I don't think so.
Never mind.
That would make it even more impressive that he went his entire life without being beat once. If he made it to 50 without being beaten.
That's true.
But no, I think he was more of the age of late 20s, something like that. Late 20s.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's meant to be. Obviously, she's a teenager. Younger, she's 13 when the books start, right? Or is she 14?
13.
13 when the books start.
When she's pregnant, she's 14. And then I don't know if in the timeline at this particular moment she's reached 15 or not, but she's in there.
She's either 14 or 15 at this point. So she's 13 when she meets Drogo. Let's assume he's in his 20s. Maybe 30.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jorah, who's 50.
Big difference.
This is a big difference.
And also,
I'm not one to say
going from a man with a ponytail down to his thighs to a bald man must be very different.
I know, a ponytail down to your thighs versus hair all over your body and not on your head.
But let's take a moment to talk about Jorah. All right, he dodged a bullet because his ex-wife was demanding.
Yes.
She was high maintenance. And he dodged a bullet.
But
Jorah was not in the wrong there. He's just get out.
Did he dodge the bullet though? Because he lost a lot because of her.
Yeah, that's true.
He lost his honor. He lost it, you know.
All right, so he didn't really dodge a bullet. But still,
Ned Stark was coming.
He learned a valuable lesson.
He did learn a valuable lesson. Oh, she's House Hightower, right? That's where she was from?
Yeah.
And she looked an awful lot like Dany. Do the Hightowers have Valyrian blood? Do they have Targaryen blood in there? Are they?
Maybe.
Is that like a thing?
Who knows?
Hightower is at Old Town.
Maybe the Game of Thrones story or the Song of Ice and Fire story will end with Dany realizing how much she loves Jorah And then this Jorah's ex-wife coming back. Turns out she can be a dragon rider too because she's Targaryen, and then it's this epic showdown for Jorah's love.
That would be wild.
There's a fanfic idea for anyone out there.
Yeah, there you go. Someone write that story.
Have fun with that. I'm not gonna read it.
You do just the whole thing with Jorah is just, it's just sad, and it's also just a lesson in how love can just blind people to logic and reason, and kind of,
Once again, love is the death of duty.
that's where I was going. I was gonna say, Maester Aemon knows what he's talking about when he says that. It's literally exactly what happened to Jorah. He was so in love with this girl that duty and honor went out the window. And you know it's bad when Ned Stark is coming for you.
Yeah.
And you decide to run away.
Well, Ned Stark isn't coming for him anymore, so I think he's alright.
Yeah, that's true.
See? He's fine.
But what does Dany say at the very end of this story? Once she finds out, she's just like, oh, he wants me. Oh. Ooh. Well, I can't give him me, but I can give him back Bear Island. This I will do for you.
Yes.
So she hasn't done it, but in her mind, she has effectively friend-zoned him.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's no better way to get rid of a stalker than to just shun them to an island. Forget about them. As far away from King's Landing as possible.
I mean, he does spend a good amount of the time telling that story, talking about how far away from everything Bear Island is.
Yeah.
I don't know, when I was listening to him talk about Bear Island, I was like, I think it sounds kind of nice.
Right?
I'm
fine with that.
Miss Hightower there really, really hated it, but I'm sitting there going, on an island, far away from everybody and everything, quiet.
I know. What did he say?
Peaceful.
Like, oh, there's only game to eat and all that sort of. So, tasty.
Right. Doesn't, like, she just sounds like she was kind of spoiled, rotten, high maintenance. Like, I don't know. It doesn't sound so bad to me.
She was a woman who knew what she wanted. That's all.
I guess so. Look, as long as there's books on Bear Island, I'm good. I don't know if there's books on Bear Island. I would hope so.
Probably How to Survive on Bear Island.
I mean, it's not going to be like the library at Winterfell. May it rest in peace. Do we know if any of the books in Winterfell were saved?
I think so.
Other than the ones Tyrion took with him when he left?
I think the Maester there says something
about saving some of the books. I hope so.
I think
that would be so sad.
There's like a chapter or two after he talks about it and says that it wasn't like a total loss or whatever.
Oh. But anyway, this isn't about Winterfell. So my bad.
No. Well, I mean, at least we stayed in the north this time.
That's true.
I think last time I started talking about a completely different book, or it wasn't even a book at all. I don't remember.
Well, last time we had to talk about Theon, and we had to talk about something else other than the cringe and the toxic masculinity.
That's true.
Just so much.
Hey, George should get Theon and his ex-wife together. They could hit it off.
They would be perfect for each other.
Exactly.
Maybe. Although I don't think she'd like it in Pike. She didn't like it at Bear Island.
Yeah. Might appreciate Bear Island a little bit.
That's true.
Maybe you didn't have it so bad, lady. At least you had trees and grass. Here, have some stones. And some rocks.
Some iron ore.
I even got you a boulder.
Look, this mattress isn't as mildewed as the other ones.
In the summertime, the valleys grow green with moss.
The way that the sun hits the lichen at dawn is truly glorious.
It almost makes you forget about the cold, damp shivers you're having.
Oh man. I mean, this was a Dany chapter, but at the same time, it was also kind of a Jorah chapter because you get his backstory finally.
Yeah.
Figure out what's the deal with this dude,
And
and it's a bummer.
I think we know where we're going next time. To Ka.
We are gonna go to Karth,
That'll be interesting. I wonder how that is there.
right? Didn't Jorah talks about it a little bit? It's a 3-walled city. I think he says he like mentions it
Yeah.
briefly because Dany's like, "What's out here?" And Jorah's like, "Well, there's this and this and this, but it's really far away, and I've never been there." So
I know it's
somewhere.
east of Westeros. Very far east. Or very far west if you'd prefer.
So who did we meet at the end of the story? We met Zaro, Zarin, Doxos, Pyat Pri, and Quaith.
Yes.
The 3 wise men coming to see the 3 wise persons
I
coming
was
to
going to say
see
Queeth is a woman.
Quaith.
Quaith. Quaith. I meant to say Quaith.
It is early in the morning, isn't it? The 3 wise persons
Yes.
coming to see the
Cute.
dragons.
Well, we'll be referring it now to her now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because in the show, Dany comes to them.
Does? Oh yeah, she does. She comes up to the walls.
She comes up to Karth, and they come outside. And Quaith is not with them.
No, Q shows up at the banquet.
Yeah.
Or maybe not the banquet.
It was like a party.
It was like
a little
party.
garden party.
Yeah.
Um,
From a shy. Did they mention that she's from?
Not in this chapter.
Oh well.
Did they?
I thought so.
Well, let me just take a quick look. Oh, yeah,
They mentioned that she's from the Darklands or something like that.
She just says, "I am Quaith of the Shadow."
Oh, okay.
So
It's very edgy.
sounds kind of like an edgelord.
I'm Quaith the Shadow.
She literally says, "I am Quaith from the Shadow. We come seeking dragons." Okay. You're cool. You're badass.
Kind of sounds like the title you'd hear in My Immortal.
I am vampire.
I'm Vampire of the Shadows.
Look at my scar.
So yeah, I guess we're gonna get to see what Karth is like.
Yeah, we get to go potentially to a new place other than the Red Waste. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And another place other than the Dothraki Sea. That would be nice. Exploring more places is always fun. Because so far we've seen, well, Illyrio's house. So I guess it doesn't really count. Bravos doesn't really count because we're just at his house the whole time.
Yeah.
We got to see a lot of the Dothraki Sea and Vaes Dothrak. We've gotten to see the Red Waste. That was depressing.
Yeah.
We've been to Winterfell. We've heard about Bear Island. We've been to King's Landing.
We've kind of been all over in Westeros.
Oh yeah,
Been, like everywhere in Westeros except Casterly Rock so far.
That's the one place I want to see. I want to see Casterly Rock. Where is it? Show it to me.
What if? I think there is a character that goes there. I'll talk to you after we finish the discussion. Yeah, so next time
we get to hang out with, guess who?
Sansa.
No,
No, we haven't had a Sansa chapter.
that's okay.
Tyrion.
No, we haven't
Arya?
had a Tyrion chapter in a minute, actually. We had like one.
Yeah.
No,
Well, we've had like one chapter for everyone so far.
we've had like
Because
two.
Davos was thrown in there too, so
Yeah,
everyone
Davos
has
and
gotten
Theon.
there.
I think Arya is the only one that's had multiple chapters.
Yeah. So is it Arya?
No,
Who is it?
Jon Snow.
Have we had a Jon Snow chapter yet?
Mm-hmm.
We did? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember what happened.
He was looking at the scrolls with Sam, I think, right? No.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. He was getting the map because they were going to go behind the wall. Beyond the wall.
Yeah, and then he talks to Jorah. I mean, Lord Commander Mormont.
He mentions Jorah.
He mentions Jorah. You know, I'm just saying. His name is Jor. His son's name is Jorah. Come on. That's easy to confuse. But why do they all do that? Either the Starks, like how many Brandons and Rickards are there
Yeah, that's
in
true.
the Stark family? Like, jeez.
Not
Tytos.
They're not creative people.
Tytos, Tywin, Tyrion. Like, my goodness.
Right. I don't think it's even that there's a lot of characters in Game of Thrones. There are a lot of characters, but it'd be much easier to remember them if they had different names.
The Targaryen family tree alone. There are so many Aegons.
Yeah.
Like, so many Aegons.
It's like a family picked 3 names and then it's just...
They just rotate them
Yeah.
around. Yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Like,
The only reason Rhaegar is like...
Drogon is the first original name that they've had in the family, and it's a freaking dragon.
It's true. The dragon names were way more creative than the names that they gave their children.
Yeah.
Like Balerion, the Black Dread, who...
That's an awesome name.
We got that...
disrespect Balerion.
I wasn't going to.
Oh, I thought you were saying that was
No,
boring.
I was going to say that was
Okay.
original. That was different. Balerion, the Black Dread, who we got to hear about in this chapter.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Could swallow a horse in one gulp.
Just saying it was cute to, like, get the descriptions of the dragons, and I think Rhaegal tried to fly.
Yep.
Or Viserion tried to fly. I don't remember which one.
Or I think it was Rhaegal.
Tried
and
to
he,
fly,
like,
and he fell.
And then got mad.
Yeah. The little baby dragons. They're so cute, the babies.
There's one thing the show did right. It's that they got the dragons very babified.
Yeah, they did. They did the dragons pretty well. Also, Dany mentions again that she breastfed them.
Yeah.
That...
Ow.
How did that work? I don't want to know, actually. I don't want to know.
Yeah, like, how are dragons' teeth? Do they have teeth when they're first born? And if they do, they must be like, little snake teeth.
Right. Are we operating under the impression that they're like reptiles?
No.
Biologically?
They're warm-blooded. Well, I guess you could technically say maybe they're cold-blooded, but they have that fire burn. I don't know. They're warm-blooded.
I don't mean in the warm-blooded sense. I mean in the sense that they have scales. If they are... Because reptiles are born with teeth,
They're more dinosaurs.
Yeah, they're more like... Yeah. Well, dinosaurs are born with teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So, do they have teeth? Of course, dinosaurs didn't drink milk either when they're
Well, I mean, they're
so...
eating meat, so
So
either they were born with teeth or they grow them very quickly.
Either way,
We should have like a Game of Thrones biology discussion one day,
right?
where we can just get all this out because we have so many questions when it comes to the creatures of Westeros.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I don't
true.
think I ever looked it up. I remember asking if there was a bestiary
For
or
a game
a
of...
Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because we hear about a lot of different like species
People
within Westeros and
and animals.
outside, just around the world. It'd be very interesting to see someone's take on it.
Ice spiders. I'm curious. I have questions about ice spiders. It was nice to... it's very cool to see the dragons in the story now and how they act, and
Yeah.
get a little Balerion action in the story she's telling her people.
Always good to see Valerian.
And
Or hear about Valerian.
her followers are pretty loyal at this point, I think.
Yeah, you don't run away from the lady who has dragons.
Who literally did a blood magic sacrifice to have the dragons.
Yeah, that's the type of person you stay on their good side.
Yeah, right? Right? So we go from all this epicness with little baby dragons and desert and hot, and it sucks, and then Karth, and then dragons, and Jorah's terrible love life,
To cold, miserable, and John's terrible love life.
John's lack of love life.
Yeah. You know, he's got Sam.
Yeah, he's not totally
And
awesome.
if Lord of the Rings has taught us anything, all you need is a Sam.
This is true.